Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here, this time reviewing on the film The Goonies. Now, as you know, The Goonies is meant to be a 1985 adventure comedy film that was co-produced and directed by Richard Donner, who was also known for directing the horror film The Omen, as well as working on the iconic Superman film from 1978. Now, the premise of the film is meant to be about Mikey and his friends who end up finding a treasure map that leads to the pirate One-Eyed Willie's treasure, and this causes him and his friends to go out on an all-out adventure to get the money to save their houses from being torn down, to stop this sort of country club from expanding their territory. Now, I would say the characters each have a trait. Mikey is the sort of leader of the group, but suffers from asthma. You kind of got Chuck, who kind of tells these tall tales to sound like he's done all these cool things. You've got Mouth, who's kind of the jokester, but more like the cheeky sort of one. You also got basically Mikey's older brother, who's kind of the athlete, and maybe the more older brother, but tries to be more realistic. And you've also got Data, who's basically the sort of Asian kid in the group who has all these cool gadgets. And when you kind of got Andy and Stephanie thrown in, I feel they were more thrown in to be the love interest and the sort of geeky friend character. And of course, you kind of have them exploring to find One-Eyed Willie's treasure, and at the same time have to deal with a dangerous crime family from Mama Fateri. And I would say Mama Fateri is meant to be this kind of like arrogant but kind of more demanding mum. She's basically has one son she favours and hates the other one, and she also has a deformed son known as Sloth, who's meant to be this kind of like well-meaning guy, and someone Chuck befriends. And I would say the movie isn't afraid about showing dark stuff, like for example showing skeletons in previous victims, basically showing the dead bodies of the Fratelli's kill count, and I would say definitely not afraid about going into adult themes. And I think kids from the 80s could definitely relate to this movie. It's basically still having that adult kind of cheeky humor 80s kids had, and something 90s kids like myself kind of appreciate what 90s stuff did. And I would say, surprising enough, the film does go a little silly at times. Like you can kind of tell the country club don't really know how to spend their money properly, even though they could have rented the houses, employed them better. But it's kind of implied that they just look down on Mikey's family and the others living where they live. And I would say, surprising enough having the ship sail at the end feels like they're just letting it go, even though they could just go after it. And I would say, surprising enough, the film is a cultural icon, and surprising enough, there was a Netflix bootleg called Finding Hohana, which has the same premise: characters finding gold to help a certain family member. You kind of have the brother who has a love interest, you kind of got the geeky best friend, and you kind of got like a sort of Goonies-like story. And surprising enough, the actor who played Data actually played in that one. So basically, Finding Hohana is more like a Netflix bootleg. And surprising enough, the Goonies had a lot of stuff. For example, they had video games on the Commodore 64, the Atari 8-bit family, and surprising enough, there was a game called The Goonies 2 that acted like its own sort of thing, with you basically trying to rescue the mermaid Annie. And I know there had been talks about doing a sequel and other adaptations, but for me, it's best they leave the film the way it is. The movie was over by the end of it, and there was really no way to properly do any more. So to me, The Goonies is an enjoyable film. If you're a fan of a sort of DuckTales, Indiana Jones, all kind of famous five like storyline, this is definitely your film. So I think it definitely deserves a thumbs up. Still good and still alright. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.